Hey guys, it's Jess from Misfortune Astrology. How's everybody doing? It's been a while since I made a video, but as it always seems to happen, that I'll have a period of time where a bunch of people, random people who have no connection to each other, start asking me basically the same type of question over and over and over again. And it triggers for me kind of this clarity around certain transits that are occurring and the fact that they are, that they're being very keenly felt. And so I decided to put together this video on retrogrades. And, we are currently in retrograde season. A lot of the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, are retrograde, are about to go retrograde. Uranus is going soon. But 2020 is unique for a lot of reasons, one of which is that all of our personal planets, which are Mercury, Venus, and Mars, are going retrograde this year, or already have. So with Mercury, that's not actually a very big deal. Mercury goes retrograde 3, sometimes 4 times a year. So, no surprises there that he's going to go retrograde. He'll retrograde 3 times this year. He's already done twice. But Venus and Mars, they don't retrograde as often. In fact, they retrograde kind of the least often out of all of the planets. Venus only goes retrograde once every 18 months. Mars goes every 2.5-ish years. It's like 26-ish months, I think. And that's actually infrequent compared to everything else. So to have all 3 of them converge in the same year is kind of a big deal, and just adds to the list of why 2020 fucking sucks, right? So what's happening is, and let me kind of explain why Venus and Mars are a bit of a rarity. What retrograde is it's essentially an optical illusion, right? We know from a physics standpoint that planets do not just stop in the middle of the sky, back up for X number of degrees, stop again, and then do an about face and start spinning forward again. That does not happen. All the planets are moving in the same direction. They're constantly moving forward. However, because astrology is geocentric, it's earth-centric. It's based on the way that we view the planets here from Earth and not the way that they would be viewed from the sun. So it appears from our vantage point here on Earth that the planets do in fact do that at certain points of the year. And the reason that that is the case is because all of the planets are different distances from the sun, different distances from Earth, and they all move at varying speeds, right? And so essentially I compare it often to being on the highway. So say you're on a multi-lane highway and you're going 65 miles an hour, and the person to your right is going 45, the person to your left is going 70, and the person to their left is going 90, right? And you all kind of converge on the same space, but because of the different speeds and the different kind of distances between you, at some point, the person who's going 90 is going to pull far ahead of you. At some point, the person next to you is going to pull ahead of you, but still be kind of behind the person to his left. Did I say right? I don't even know. You get the metaphor, right? And then you're going to look at the person who is actually on your right, and they're going to at some point appear to be moving backwards if you look at them in the rearview mirror. But you know that they're not moving backwards. They're still traveling forward. They're just slower than you. So basically what happens is, as Earth makes its way around its orbit, the outer planets are almost always retrograde at around the same times every year. And that is because they move so friggin' slow that Earth is lapping them constantly, right? So those retrogrades are fairly predictable in terms of when they're going to happen. Venus and Mars, not so much, right? They're actually pretty close to us. And so we travel kind of in tandem with them. And so, while their retrogrades are definitely, they happen in regular set intervals, it is more rare for us to kind of overtake them, or, for them to kind of overtake us because we are so close together. So again, Mars is kind of, he is the most infrequent retrograder, to coin a phrase. Venus is second to Mars in terms of infrequency. And then, Mercury we have going 3 times a year because he just likes to fuck everybody's shit up all the time. So that is to kind of give you an idea of what retrograde is, right? So it's just an optical illusion. Now, even though we know that it's just an optical illusion, the fact of the matter is that the energy of the planet does change, right? It does change the way that it is received here on Earth for, whatever cosmic reason that is. So it pays to kind of heed when these things are going on. Now, one of the major mistakes that I see people making whenever a planet goes retrograde is they only pay attention to the part of the journey where the planet appears to be moving backwards. They think that, oh, that, say, 3-week period in the case of Mercury, where he appears to be backing up, that's the retrograde, right? And that it's true in the sense that that is when the retrograde motion is occurring, but that's only one part of the journey, right? Every planet that retrogrades actually spends 2/3 of a retrograde cycle moving in direct motion. What you have to pay attention to is the entire degree range, right? So for example, Mercury's most recent retrograde took him through Cancer between 5 degrees and 14 degrees, okay? So he got to Cancer 5 degrees, he entered into the shadow. He made it to 14 degrees Cancer, and then he appeared to slow down, stop at 14 degrees, and then back up, okay? He backed up to 5 degrees again, slowed down, stopped, and then spun direct and went back over 5 through 14 degrees. And he just cleared 14 degrees, what's today, the 28th? He just actually cleared the shadow yesterday on the 27th. So for 2 out of 3 of those legs of the journey, he was moving in direct motion. You have to pay attention to the entire degree range and every single time that he passes over it. So what ends up happening is that 5 degrees to 14 degrees of Cancer in this particular case is lit up 3 times, once going forward, once going backwards, once going forward. If you only pay attention to the backup part, right, you're missing 2/3 of the cycle. And this is why Mercury retrograde tends to fuck with people so heavy, because they only pay attention to 1/3 of the cycle. If you start paying attention when a planet actually enters the shadow, pay attention to things like, okay, what sign is he in? What house is that for me in my individual natal chart? Do I have anything there? Is he going to be passing over any specific degrees that are, sensitive in my particular chart? You can map out very specifically what area of life the retrograde is likely to hit you, what days are likely to be, pretty shitty, or to at least present you with an opportunity to kind of have a rethink, revisit, recalibration, whatever planet we're talking about, and kind of get an idea of what the overall lesson is going to be. Now, you can't predict specifically what's going to happen, because energy can manifest in an infinite number of ways, right? So I can't sit here and say to you like, oh, this is how it's going to go down. But I can say with real serious specificity, these are the dates to watch for. This is the area of life to look for. And once it does start to present, once energy does manifest in a certain way, chances are really good that it's going to continue down that path. It's not just going to stop and decide to manifest differently. So, very, very important to pay attention to the entire retrograde cycle. Now, this is all kind of, general retrograde information that applies across the board, no matter what planet we're talking about. Pay attention to the entire degree range, pay attention to what house it's in, pay attention to the dates that it's moving forward, backward, and forward, because when the planet is moving forward, some sort of lesson will be introduced to you. When the planet moves backwards, you will be given an opportunity to review whatever that lesson is. And when the planet moves forward again for the third and final time, that's when you are meant to integrate the lesson that you've already learned. Now, if you only started paying attention during basically during the retrograde, and you don't pay attention to, the initial pass or the subsequent pass, then the post-shadow period in particular, which we've just come out of with Mercury retrograde, is going to be an absolute shit show, right? Because you have no idea what the lesson even was. You completely missed the introduction to the lesson, okay? So again, I cannot emphasize this enough. I am totally that asshole that as soon as Mercury spins direct, and I use Mercury because, he's like the pumpkin spice latte of friggin' astrology now, and everybody knows about Mercury retrograde and doesn't realize that every other fucking planet goes retrograde too. As soon as he spins direct, people who are into astrology all over social media are just like, yay, it's over, it's over, it's over. And it's like, no, I'm always that asshole that is just like, it's not, it's absolutely not. And if your experience has been anything like mine, Mercury retrograde shenanigans were still happening right up through yesterday for me, right? And yesterday is the day that he finally cleared the shadow. Now, I don't expect going forward for it to be an issue anymore, because now he's finally done. We have reached fresh and clear energy where Mercury is concerned. But we are still technically in the shadow period for Venus for another day, right? So she retrograded. Her retrograde has been done. Let's see, she's stationed direct at 5 degrees of Gemini back on June 25th, right? June 25th is when everybody started celebrating, yay, Venus retrograde is over, Venus retrograde is over. And I'm sitting here being like, no, no, bitches, it's not. No, because she doesn't exit the shadow. She still has to make that third and final pass over the degree range that she retrograded through. And she will not exit that shadow until tomorrow, the 29th, okay? So we actually have a very interesting sequence of events here with these particular retrogrades because, like I said, Mercury retrograded through Cancer. He cleared his shadow yesterday on the 27th. Venus retrograded through Gemini. She is going to clear her shadow tomorrow on the 29th. So now what seems to be happening is I'm getting a lot of questions from people about like, oh, so-and-so that I know or, whatever, is having a relationship issue. And, I just want to make sure that, that it's basically a good time for me to have this conversation or consider this relationship, revise, kind of reviving this relationship, whatever, right? It's almost always around a relationship issue when it comes to Venus and Mercury combined, right? There's some communication issue, whatever. And so my advice for the past few days has kind of been, we're just about done. If you want to have the conversation, right? But maybe don't act on anything right away. And then it dawned on me that, basically like having conversations and moving forward in relationship issues or, in some issue where, something around you, something that you value, right? Because that's what Venus retrograde is all about. Mercury is a rethink on, information, communication, transportation, nothing sexy there. But Venus, she strikes at the heart, right, of things, right? People that we love, things that we love, our money, our value systems, our self-esteem. These are the types of stuff that come up during Venus retrograde. And so a lot of really sensitive issues are kind of now wrapping up because she is finally wrapping up. The problem is that moving forward and taking action on whatever it is you've learned throughout these retrogrades is really not terribly advisable right now. And that's because Mars entered his fucking shadow on the 25th. Let me just make sure. Yeah, 25th of July. So 4 days ago, okay? 3 days ago. I can't do math. So basically what happens is we have this overlap, right? So Mercury and Venus, they retrograde, their retrogrades kind of overlap. They exit the shadow within 2 days of each other. So that's awesome, on the face of it, because, now we know that whatever issues were kind of raised for us with Mercury and Venus are, we're basically free and clear as of tomorrow to deal with Mercury issues, Venus issues. However, to the extent that action is required on your part to kind of deal with whatever those lessons are, you have to proceed with caution because Mars has now entered his shadow. Now, Mars is in Aries. Generally speaking, we love Mars in Aries. Mars rules Aries. Mars is a fucking warrior in Aries. That's where he belongs. Motivation is abundant, right? Impulsiveness, boldness, all the awesome things that Aries people are known for. We all kind of have access to that energy right now, currently, with Mars traveling direct through one of the signs that he rules. However, Mars generally spends about 6 weeks in each sign. And instead of spending 6 weeks in Aries like normal, because of his impending retrograde, he's going to be there for 6 motherfucking months. Okay, 6 months. So he entered Aries not too long ago. He is now, not yesterday, the 25th of July, he crossed over 15 degrees of Aries. Okay, so the degree range that we're looking at for this particular retrograde is 15 degrees of Aries and 28 degrees of Aries. So he's going to make it through most of the sign. He's going to stop in the sky, appear to stop in the sky. He's going to backtrack from 28 degrees to 15 degrees of Aries, stop again, spin direct, and then he's going to come through again. So let me give you these dates because wherever Aries falls in your chart, wherever 15 degrees of Aries through 28 degrees of Aries falls in your chart, this is an area of your life where you are not going to be able to make any serious forward progress until like January, okay? Like we're talking seriously, like Mars rules action. He rules aggression. He rules motivation, right? If Venus is representative of the things that you want in life, that you desire, Mars is how you go and get those things. So to the extent that Mercury and Venus retrograde cycles have kind of highlighted for you something that you want, that you desire, That's awesome, great, right? But have fun going to fucking get it. Or and if you do, right, if you do go get it, just keep in mind that chances are good that all of your forward motion in this particular case will end up being undone, because it's virtually impossible to get anything done when Mars is retrograde. Now, again, he entered the shadow July 25th at 15 degrees of Aries. He is going to retrograde at 28 degrees of Aries September 9th. Okay, so September 9th is when he starts to actually back up. And he's going to back up through November. Hold on, let me look here. Retrograde is September 9th through November 14th. Okay, so around November 14th, mid-November, he's going to get back to this 15-degree mark where he crossed over just a few days ago. Now, if something has happened, some action of aggression, right? If you got in a fight with somebody, within the last few days, if there's been some kind of like, you're really motivated to go get something all of a sudden, or it could manifest as a sexual desire. Mars is not above that, right? There's lots of ways that Mars energy can manifest. But keep in mind that if something has happened to you in the past few days, you are going to have a resurgence of whatever this issue is come mid-November. Okay, so anything that you do between now and mid-November along those lines, it's a fucking free for all, right? Like you can't be sure that anything that you actually go after at this point is going to be yours for the taking. He will spin direct November 14th at 15 degrees of Aries, and then he will start to move forward again. And it is not until January 5th, 2021, that Mars will exit the shadow. He will get to 29 degrees of Aries on that January 5th day, 2021. And then he will be into Taurus, right, where he's in detriment and fucking miserable. So, we have a long road ahead of us in terms of going after anything that we want. Now, Mars retrograde, like I said, is notorious for kind of being just a sleepy time, right? Outward acts of aggression don't tend to get you anywhere. You have a really hard time kind of getting it up, literally and figuratively, right? It's just, all of the passion, all of the boldness and everything that Mars is really known for as he goes through Aries is not going to be as readily available to us, coming up soon and for a few months, as it has been since he entered Aries. So just, really keep that in mind, that any, the higher energy levels that most people have managed to kind of sustain are not going to be sustainable for the foreseeable future. They really are. We're going to kind of backtrack. Now, if you have Mars retrograde in the natal chart, which I do, and it's actually pretty rare, again, because Mars doesn't spend a whole heck of a lot of time retrograde. So I don't see Mars retrograde in the natal chart very often. It does come up. And again, I have it. You guys, we are the lucky ones, okay? Because when you are born into retrograde energy, what ends up happening is that when that planet goes retrograde again, kind of in real time, you feel better, right? Like it actually resonates with your own vibe, with your kind of original vibe better than it does, when that planet is moving direct. So I tend to really like Mars retrograde, but I'm a passive aggressive bitch regardless. And so, but that's the type of thing that you're going to see. It's going to be more passive aggression. Anybody who attempts to use aggression or really kind of push forward, it's the image that keeps kind of coming to mind is firing a gun and the gun just misfires, right? Like that's essentially either it misfires or just completely jams up, right? Like nothing. And you watch for yourself, because you could end up getting a whole lot of Mars energy just kind of blown back at you when you're least expecting it. So very, very interesting kind of presentation. 2020, as everybody knows, astrologically speaking, is a bit of a shit show. The next couple years are not shaping up to be much better, unfortunately, but the personal planet retrograde craziness that we're kind of in right now really won't be repeated, right? There's going to be a lot of outer planet stuff kind of going on over the course of the next couple of years, which will affect us more collectively. But the bigger issue for 2020, in addition to the backdrop of everything that's kind of happening for the collective, which I'm not trying to downplay, it sucks, right? There's a whole lot of craziness out there, but it's affecting everybody across the board. Whereas the planets, the personal planets all going retrograde in the same year, really drives kind of more of the collective stuff home to us in our personal lives, in our daily lives. So just really proceed with caution. Mars retrograde, again, you know, he's not going to actually go retrograde until September 9th. You're going to see plenty of astrologers out there who don't fucking mention it until then. And, you know, they're going to be like, oh, Mars is retrograde. And it's like, you actually need to be thinking about it now, right? And don't worry, right? There's nothing to worry about. If you are proactive and start kind of flag it in your head, you know, Mars is already in shadow. So anything that kind of comes up that demands that you take action, it's a fucking trap, okay? It's a trap. Take action if you want to, but be totally prepared to have that action completely undone on you. So it's much better to kind of just take a wait and see approach, especially if there's some sort of situation that calls for you to be aggressive, that calls for you to be extra motivated, right? I hate to advise people to kind of, you know, don't be motivated where the spirit moves you, but I also don't like to have to, you know, explain to people on the back end that they misused a transit that, you know, really is not meant to hurt you. These retrogrades are not, you know, they're a pain in the ass, but they don't, you know, the universe wants our highest and greatest good. It really does. And so sometimes it forces us to slow down, you know, so that we can take stock and consciously decide what is for our highest and greatest good, because the universe can only do so much, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So, hopefully everybody is hanging in there. It is hot as balls where I am outside of Boston, Massachusetts. So I am currently dying, and you know, not looking forward to Mars retrograde, but I know that it will be interesting, as it always is. So take care, and hope to see you out there soon. Bye, guys.